Tired of your current job? You want to start your own business? Well, you're in luck. Jamie Lee is hosting So You Want to Start a Business, where every Saturday he interviews actual business owners and they'll share their journeys. They'll give you valuable tips and strategies on how to start and grow your own business. Let's see who Jamie has in store for us today on So You Want to Start a Business.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of So You Want to Start a Business. And today we have my friend, head coach of Nelson County, Phillip Stockdale. Welcome.
Hey man, nice to be here.
And some people might think of, why would I have a head coach on here? But you know, a lot of times if you have a business, especially if you have any employees, leadership and having that confidence and being able to build confidence in others is such an important thing. So tell everybody about yourself, where you're from, and how you got to Campbellsville College.
Okay. Well, I'm Phillip Stockdale. I'm currently the head coach at Nelson County High School in Bardstown, Kentucky. I'm originally from Mount Sterling, Kentucky. Went to Montgomery County High School, played football there.
I forgot you
got
were there.
recruited to play down at Campbellsville. Went down there. My original plan was to be a farmer, and I started getting recruited, and I talked to my dad, and I was like, Dad, I think I want to try this out. And he's like, go ahead. And a few years later, he's like, man, it's probably the happiest day of my life when you decided to go play college football instead of getting into farming with me. So I ended up down at Campbellsville, played 4 years, got into education around probably my junior year. I finally declared my major for education. And then I coached a year when I was doing my student teaching. My final year and finishing up my studies at Greene County High School. Then I moved around quite a bit. But this is my 26th year in education total. And this is I'm at my first high school head coaching job right now. I've been around. I've taught and coached in Tennessee for probably about 6-7 years, and then made my way back home. So here I am in Nelson County right now.
Awesome. So while we were in Campbellsville, we had a lot of fun together.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have the best record, of course, especially the 2 years that I was there. And one of the mottos that we had with our shirts and stuff like that was, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And for me, sometimes you can end up getting, whenever you're in a slump like that, it's like it's an excuse or something like that, or like it's a cover up or something like that of our losing issues. What did that motto mean to you back then compared to what it means now and going into your coaching career?
Well, the biggest lesson from it was just the idea and the concept of perseverance. That you've got to, things aren't always going to be good. Records, there's a lot of things that I don't think people understand how hard it is to win a football game.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult, and it's difficult to put together a great season. But you've got to, no matter what happens, when it's tough, you got to persevere. You got to fight through it, and that's the biggest thing I learned through those. We were my first year before you showed up, 91 and 92.
Mm-hmm.
We were pretty solid. We were conference co-champs in 92. Then we kind of fell off a little bit. My junior and senior year.
That was not totally my fault. Just so I say that, it wasn't totally my fault that we dropped off. Just when I come.
Yeah, we and it's just the idea of fighting through it. I think today's society, we're so, with athletics the way it is, kids are transferring. They're doing it in high school.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get to play as freshmen or sophomores, and they pack up and go to a school across town, and it's easy to leave and just go somewhere else. And the biggest thing I learned through that is we just got to persevere. We got to continue to fight through it. And I tell my players all the time, it's something I tell them. I'm like, you know what? I'm my best when things are at their worst.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to be the kind of young men that, like, when the world is just chaotic around them, they're in the middle of it saying, listen, guys, I've got this. Relax. Follow me.
Mm-hmm.
I know what to do. And I like that challenge. And like I said, when things are going smooth and easy, I tend to get fat and lazy.
Yeah.
But when the challenge in front of us, I think that we're just kind of built like that. When the times get tough, I think we got to just bear down and persevere.
Absolutely. And I think that that's one of the great things that I learned from football through the 14 years, whatever, that I played, was that was the hardest times, but the funnest times, or whenever you had a guy in front of you that could roll your butt over.
Yeah.
But then you pick yourself up, and then you just kind of dig a little deeper for the next down, and that's what you kind of have to learn as far as to persevere. Now, while we were there, we had some great men around us in Campbellsville. Legendary coaches like Ron Finley, that started Campbellsville's football program, was there for many years. Me and you shared offensive line coach Haywood Reiner, Coach Graves. Coach Sam was such a fun coach, but he taught so much even in the same process, that now, whenever we follow him and, rest in peace, Coach Sam, stuff like that, you see something like that, it really touches your heart because they touched us. Coach Thomas and Coach Graves, what are just some of the lessons that they kind of taught you about being able to stand out, to be a good Christian man and a good man in general, I guess you could say?
A couple of the biggest things that Coach Finley done, he talked about, it was God, family, and football.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of prioritizing what's important, we put a lot of time as coaches, and business owners are the same way. They put their heart and soul into their work, and then we've also got to make sure that we realize, he always used to say, who you are and whose you are.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to remember God and our faith. That's number one, and then of course our families, and our families make a lot of sacrifices because of the careers we've chosen. And then of course the next part is football. For me, it's still football, and then just the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other biggest thing that, and I didn't really realize this until I was in my interview here at Nelson County. And I talked about Coach Finley, and they're like, well, you really seem to revere Coach Finley quite a bit, and he seemed to have a great impact. And the lady asked me, she goes, why? And I really had to sit down and thought about it, man. I just sat there for a couple of minutes and gathered my thoughts. I said, well, you know what? I said, I trusted Coach Finley explicitly. I mean, without a doubt, without any questioning, I trusted the man.
Mm-hmm.
And I trusted him because, number one, he never lied to me.
Yep.
Number two, he held me accountable, good and bad. I was held accountable for my actions. And number three, he always told me he loved me,
mm-hmm.
all the time. And I was like, you know what? If you want somebody to trust you, and you want somebody to follow what you're doing,
mm-hmm.
that's how you do it. You don't lie to them.
Yep.
You hold them accountable, and you tell them how much you care about them. And that's a staple of what we do here at Nelson County, and we talk about it all the time. You want somebody to trust you, do those three things, and they'll trust you, guaranteed.
Absolutely. And then also, like if you watch the interview that I had with KO,
Mm-hmm.
the parts that he taught as far as, Finley time,
Sure. Yeah.
making sure that you're there on time. If you're on time, you're late. You got to be there beforehand. Saying yes or no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Right.
That type of respect and teaching that. And along with that is the football. Even though we had a few rough years there, you look at, you talk about how he kind of led you to who you are.
Right.
That class has a lot of successful coaches out of that fraternity. You look at Chris Wolf at Louisville Mill, Brent Thompson. I forgot John Myers.
Brian Weinrich, who's got a state
Yeah.
championship at Highlands. He was at Highlands for several years. He's in that group too.
And now with the success that you had last year with Nelson County, how does it feel to be like a member of that fraternity that kind of carries on what the lessons and stuff that our coaches taught us and going forward?
Well, there's a lot of pride in when a guy from Campbellsville does really well, especially a Finley guy, somebody that played for Coach. There's a big source of pride there for me, and I've learned a lot from those guys In particular, Chris and Brent. I worked with Chris at Hancock County. I worked with him at Wagner, and I spent a year with him at Male. And the biggest thing I learned, from Chris is he is ultra focused on the work itself.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get to work. We're going to do the work. We don't, Chris don't do a lot of fluff, a lot of manufacturing. I'll talk about that on down the line here, but he doesn't manufacture a lot of things, but he focuses on the work. We're going to get better as a football team, technique, scheme, whatever it might be. We're going to get better at that. And that's what Chris focuses on. I learned from him that you got to focus on the work. And then from Brent, Brent was younger than me, but he's been a head coach, at North Hardin longer than I have. And the one thing about Brent that I see that really I learned from is that he has such great relationships with his players. Those guys come back all the time. And me and him, we take a trip in the spring, me and some of the guys, KO and Todd Darling and Phil Sullivan. And we, the guys are always texting him and talking to him. Even his players that have been gone for several years, they still talk about him highly. So that's one thing I've learned from Brent is that, develop those relationships. He really cares about his players. They care about him. So having those kind of guys to learn from and be around is important because I realize that I'm not flawless by any stretch of the imagination. And that my goal is always get better no matter where I get it from. As long as I can get a little bit better, that's the plan.
And I know I didn't make the biggest impact while I was there at Campbellsville, but just the part of learning, from Brent, I got moved from guard to tackle whenever I moved up there and learning that, and then being next to Brent whenever we went up to the line and stuff like that. Me and Brent got along really well. So, and you can see that. Yep. Did you take some of the coaching classes? Because I know that was a big thing and a big program at Campbellsville was as far as coaching. Did you take some of the coaching classes and stuff there?
I took a few of them. The biggest thing, other than the fundamentals of a couple sports, like I'd never played basketball. When I took coaching fundamentals of basketball, I learned a lot about it. I took a coaching, I think it was softball course as well. And I ended up coaching a year of girls softball in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, actually. But the biggest thing I took from those courses was things like organization, practice organization, and things like that.
And that's a big deal. Yeah.
Like I said, other than the sports I did know, like football, of course, I knew a lot about. But listening to Coach Finley talk about practice organization, and then how do you select, talking about selecting assistants. He talked a lot about, number one thing I look for in my assistant is loyalty. I ain't worried too much about the football knowledge, but they got to be loyal. And just some different things like that he talked about. And, Lou Cunningham and some of the other coaches down there talked about, and then talking with Buford Sanders occasionally just about stuff in general, the time I was there. So that's getting those insights from those older coaches that have been around. And I still do that now. I've got a guy on my staff named Steve Hart. Steve Hart's been coaching for 40-some years. He started the program at Bethlehem, the private school here in town. He coached at Owensboro Catholic and other places. He played for Lee Corso up in Indiana. He's from Indiana. I talked to a former basketball coach here named Minor Harmon that I talk to occasionally. And just getting those insights from those guys who have done it for so long and at a very high level, it's incredibly important to get advice and just ideas from those guys to see if you're on the right track.
And I think that's pretty important, even in the business side of things. Like, even if you're the boss, you have to be able to understand that you don't know everything. The person below you might know more than you, and you got to be willing to allow them to say their knowledge and show that you're welcome to. You're open to absorbing that knowledge, I guess you could say. And I joked in whenever I kind of put out the questions to you, but did they say anything about the 4-point stance?
Well, we're a triple option team. So I've been we ran a split back veer in high school, and of course we ran the wishbone at Campbellsville. And everywhere I've been, we've run some version, some type of option. When I got the job here, I knew I was like, you know what, I'm going to run the triple. And we started out in a 3-point stance. But this past couple seasons, I transitioned to, we do more zone blocking out of the option now.
Mm-hmm.
So we transitioned to, on offense, we use a 2-point stance. So we have that's as farthest away as you can get from the way we played at Campbell.
Oh yeah, with the and I can understand with our offense somewhat until they ask me to pull. Until they ask me to pull, that's like, how in the heck am I turning?
We're in the pistol right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just for football, we're in the pistol because I got a good quarterback and he can throw a little bit, so we throw the ball some, not a ton, but we'll throw it. If I ever get to the point where we can't throw the ball and we got to go back under center, I may end up getting in a 4-point stance and just being pure option. Probably 95% of the time, but we do some zone and some different stuff, and we throw a little bit more. We do a lot of pulling and trapping. With ours, so we're in that 2-point now. It gives us a little bit more mobility.
When you're looking for that slide step coming out of your stance, and you can't have that way too far forward. Absolutely. So a lot of the stuff with the business side of things, kind of it's culture.
Right.
So if say you buy a business or something like that, and I especially thought about it last night is if you purchase a company or a business or something like that exists, there's usually not a good culture at that company.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, that business isn't being sold, I guess you could say.
Right.
It's the same thing with the team a lot of times coming in, and you have to learn to change that culture. So whenever you actually come, like you said, you had the assistant coach's job and stuff like that, and you finally get a job that you want to interview for, and you see the success that Nelson County had, what kind of questions do you want to make sure that you ask going into a place like Nelson County about the culture and stuff like that you want to make sure of before you say, this is the job that I want?
Right. The biggest thing was, and I'll tell you the story about how I ended up getting the job. I was at Mayo 2019. We were getting ready to playing the state championship game against Louisville Trinity. It was on a Wednesday, and we'd finish up. We had that Thursday, and we didn't play till Sunday, so we had a little different setup for our week. But I got a call from the AD here, Matt Reynolds, and he had talked to Kerry Overfelt about it. Me and my wife, our family, we had already moved from Louisville down here. My wife was teaching here.
Oh, okay.
We already had moved to Bardstown, but I was coaching at Mayo, so I was driving all the way back to Louisville.
Okay.
And he called, and I was like, "Listen, man, I'm getting ready to play in the state championship game. I knew we were going to be good at Mayo for the next several years.
Mm-hmm.
I was at that point in my career, I was content with being an assistant. I was like, if I never get a head coaching job, I'm okay with it now. I want to stay right here, and this is, me and Wolf, we're going to ride this thing out and see how far we can take it." So I told him, I was like, "Listen, I'm not interested. Good luck." And I knew Nelson County hadn't won a lot in the previous few years. So I told him, I was like, "Listen, I'm not interested. Good luck. Hope you find somebody."
Mm-hmm.
And I come back home over Christmas break, and I'm just kind of driving around Bardstown because, we moved here, but I hadn't really got to explore.
Mm-hmm.
And I find this, the school is 8 miles from my house.
All right.
So it's really close. Atticus, my youngest, he's in second grade now, but he was going to school here, kindergarten. And, I just started looking around. I was like, you know what? Maybe this might be an opportunity worth pursuing, driving to Louisville and all that. And I was teaching in an alternative school at the time. And that's a pretty highly stressful teaching position. So I called the AD. I was like, "Hey, man, y'all still looking for a coach?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, let's talk." So I spent about 30, 40 minutes talking to him. And at the end, I said, "Okay, I want to apply for this job. Tell me what I need to do next." So, I continued to talk. His name's Matt Reynolds, great guy. He's not a traditional education guy. He is not he comes from the corporate world.
Okay.
He worked at a factory here in town called Tower. He was in charge of, I can't even remember exactly what, but he was in charge of some things down at Tower. And he come from a world of, you're going to perform at a high level. And sometimes the traditional education guys, they see things differently.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want a lot of problems. They were like, listen, we're going to make the safest possible hire possible and go from there. Whereas he was like, listen, I want to win. I want to win. I want to get a good coach. I want to build a program. So I think that's part of the reason I got hired is that Matt is not a traditional education guy. You know, he didn't teach, become an administrator, and then become an AD. So when I was talking to him, I asked him about some of the things that were in place. They were developing an in-school strength and conditioning program. We're going to have an actual class where kids could lift during the day for our entire athletic program. It's not just for football. And that was a huge thing. I'll be honest with you. If I'm an assistant, if I'm looking for a head coaching job right now, if I'm out there applying for jobs, if they don't have in-school strength and conditioning, I'm not even talking to them. That's one of the biggest things. I asked them about the freedom to hire my own staff. I wanted to make sure I didn't have to keep any holdovers from the previous staff. I did. I kept one in particular who was a hometown hero named Dylan Beasley. He coached quarterbacks for me and was my offense coordinator. So I kept him, but I wanted to make sure I didn't have to keep any holdovers. And then I also asked about the freedom to just do my job. You know, just I want the freedom to do my job. And I said this in my interview. And if at the end of a year you don't like me, fire me. If you don't think I'm making progress, cut me loose, and we'll go our separate ways. So I wanted the freedom to do that. And then the community, I knew Nelson County had I had researched this and knew it, that they had a great tradition. I had some really good teams, 96 state champions in Class 4A. And then I knew they had some support built in.
Right.
So then I did my interviews and ended up getting the job. And, since then, like I said, they've given me the freedom to do my job. I've hired my own staff. I'm in the weight room with the strength condition, our head strength conditioning coach. Her name's Alex Eaglin. She does a great job. We work with KO. He does our programming and stuff with it. So just having in place is huge. And coaches, when they complain, they don't ever complain about their players. They don't ever say, well, we just didn't have enough talent. What they always say when they leave a job is, well, I didn't have enough support.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have support from the administration and things like that. And we've got that here. And that was ultra important for me, is making sure that I had that support, and then I had the freedom to do my job. And they've given me that, and we've been fortunate, and we've had some success.
Because don't you agree that pretty much if you go into an interview and you don't have that expectation of winning, you can already see where that culture of losing ends up coming in?
Oh yeah.
To where if you don't have that, if you're happy with, okay, as long as the kids are safe, as long as we get good grades, and you don't have that expectation, then the kids it totally goes down the line to the kids. So okay, and I get to play.
And there's not, and this is the thing, we want to produce graduates, young men, and all those things. But you know what? We can still do that, and we can win football games at the same time. So we can be successful in all of those arenas. But like you said, it's just, I found this out about the word culture. I don't like the word culture, especially as a buzzword, because I've noticed in all my years of teaching, if you got a group and all they talk about is culture, building culture, chances are culture's not very good.
True, yeah.
And it is. We're always working on building culture. Culture is built when you do the right thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again till it becomes ingrained.
Oh, yeah.
You just go to work, and everything else will build around that. We just come in and we got to work. We got in the weight room. We got on the practice field. And we didn't do, we don't do team bonding activities, but you'd be hard pressed to find a group of guys that love each other more than our team does.
Oh, yeah.
Same with our coaching staff. In our coaching meetings, you may think we hate each other. Sometimes on Friday nights we get heated and get into it a little bit, but we care about each other. We deeply care about each other. And the reason is because since day one, we have all put our heart and souls into this team. And when you do that, you develop that bond with people, and you ain't got to worry about the culture when you start doing those kind of things.
Oh yeah, and I think that it's a good lesson to kids to understand that you need to have the complete package. You can't let off one expectation because you think that part's not important. You know, you need to be able to do that, and just like you said, the bonding is the work. You know, it's the same reason why, I could we could get together. I haven't seen you in so long, but and talking to KO and stuff,
Yeah.
you start to talk, and it's just like that. You never even left. You
Well,
know.
yeah, we all pick up where we left off every
Oh
time. With
yeah.
everybody, it's like that. Everybody we played with.
And you look at, like I told him, you look into Facebook. Most of my friends are the ones I played football with, either in Campbellsville at high school, or even when I went to Georgetown and played,
Right.
played at Georgetown. It's the work you put in together, and you understand that you're all working for the same
Same thing.
purpose, and you support each other in that process.
That's
And
it.
and I think that in that process also, with having that group of friends and head coaches that have that, it kind of do you agree that it kind of opens you up a little bit to be able to take a risk on a head coaching job? Because if it does fail, if you don't have that support that you have, that you do have that group of friends that you can kind of fall back on at that point and still be inside of football a little bit.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's and part of it is too. I want to find out if I'm as good as I think I am.
Oh.
And that challenge, the idea of having that challenge is huge. But having a group that you can, like I said, that that you can go talk to and lean on, that's important for anybody to have that kind of support system.
So you get the job, and you understand that you have a tall task ahead of you. What's the first steps you do? What's the priority list?
The first thing is, well, we introduced, and we're teaching in our strength conditioning class. We call it athletic sports leadership, and it's part strength conditioning, part leadership. So the number one thing we did is we developed a set of core values. I come up with, and I'd never really written my core values down, but we come up with this, and I called it the Full Nelson philosophy. Full Nelson because, number one, I've gotten into wrestling, amateur wrestling, over the past several years. My little one wrestles. I was a middle school wrestling coach back in Montgomery County for a couple years. And then my dad always took me to Rupp Arena to watch Jerry Lawler and them wrestle.
Oh, yeah.
Superstar. So I was like, that kind of combines a lot of my experience. So, and then with, of course, Nelson, it fit perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
So we call it the Full Nelson philosophy. And there are 6 tenets. These are our core values. It's 100% effort is the first thing that we talked about. We're like, guys, we can't go any further unless you're giving us 100%. We talk about being full of Nelson County pride. That's the second one. Is we've got a great tradition here, some great players, some great teams. So we want to make sure that we are proud to be from Nelson County. We talk about being full of love for our team, our family. Number one, our family, our team, our school, and our community. Bardstown's a great place to grow up. Nelson County High School is a great school. We talk about full belief in ourselves and others. You got to have confidence and belief in yourself, and then you got to believe in your teammates. Then we talk about full faith and trust in our coaches, teachers, and leaders. So we talk about faith is belief without evidence. So you got to have faith in people, and then eventually they're going to give you the evidence to let you know whether you can trust them or not.
Oh, yeah.
So we talk trust is that belief when you got the evidence to back it up. So we talk about faith and trust, and then the last one's full accountability. And the kids know if we miss practice, we have accountability. If we make a mistake, we have accountability. And I'm a big believer in if a kid drops a pass, you don't make him run or do push-ups, you throw in 10 more passes.
Oh, yeah.
So the accountability part is big. So we introduced our core values first, and we did that. I did one a day for the first 6 days we were in the weight room in January. That was the COVID year, so we got about 2 months in, man, and then we got cut off. But then the next thing is just the work itself. That's our second thing is we just got to work. We got in here. KO come with the weight program. He came over here a few times. We implemented our out-of-season conditioning. When we came back part-time during the COVID year, we had the class and we were training. Some of the days we were out of school, we had some kids come in and train when they cleared us to come in and work. And then the last thing is talent evaluation, acquisition, and development. And in high school, it's really talent. You kind of got to take what they give you. You take who comes to your school, but you got to get the better athletes out on the field, and we got to develop talent. We got to get stronger. We got to become better football players, and that's just a lot of time developing our players. And then with the assistants is the same thing. That talent bringing in that assistant coaching talent is I want guys who have opinions. First of all, I want guys who are, like I said, coach. I want you to be loyal. I want you to work hard. You know, the tenets, the full Nelson philosophy applies to everybody, not just players. I want you to work hard, and then I don't want a bunch of yes men. I want people that, you know, are going to challenge me. And I've hired some people. A guy just poked his head in the door a few minutes ago named Brian Higdon. He's very analytical. I'm a shoot from the hip, go with my gut guy. Brian's very analytical, so I brought him in because of that. Got some younger guys on my staff that are important, and they work hard, and they got fresh new ideas. I brought in Steve Hart, an older guy who's been around, so I brought him in to coach me as much as the kids. And then I've got a couple of other Campbellsville guys. I got Greg Crutcher. And Mike Todd Cecil. And those guys, though, you talk about two guys that will tell me what they think without worrying about if I get mad or not, it's those guys. So we've got a good group of assistant coaches, and we're getting, you know, as especially my younger coaches, as they grow, they're getting more and more responsibility. And like I said, you know, defensively, I lost my offensive coordinator. He's doing a lot of different things, so he's gonna take a different path. So I'm gonna have to work with my new offensive coordinator quite a bit more, and I'm gonna cut my defensive guy loose. His name's Nate Jackson. He played at Campbellsville for Coach Thomas. Yeah, he played at Campbellsville. He's a fighting tiger, and I'm gonna cut him loose, man, and let him go. And it's gonna be his 4th year with me. And I told somebody, I was like, if I don't trust you by now, I'm never going to. I said, I'm going to cut you loose and let you do your thing. So that's kind of how we set it up to make sure that we're in a position to compete and just to improve every day.
So you got to have the work ethic and the knowledge. You know, that goes any job, any business, anywhere. And like you said, the ability or the understanding that the openness, I guess you could say, of always learning and stuff like that. One of the other aspects that you really have, to me, when you change a culture, a lot of times, you know, again, it's a buzzword, but a lot of times players kind of get run down and they get used to losing, where they don't have the confidence in themselves. And how do you bring that back to kind of turn it around, to kind of show them, one, that you have the confidence in them to learn, and two, to show them, you know, sometimes you improve, but you don't really realize you improve.
Right.
To kind of show them that that the hard work is actually paying off.
It's paying off. The biggest thing, again, is getting them in here and getting them stronger, because they can see weights and things go up. And then when they grab a hold of another guy, and their bench presses went, you know, I've got a kid going to Campbellsville. His name's Carson Mattingly. He's going to go to Campbellsville to play football. And he was not a good football player when we got here. He could barely bench press 95 pounds. He was soft as butter. But he has grown, and he just believed in us. And, you know, we had to come to Jesus meeting on the field one day, and I said, I'm either going to make this kid or break him. And he just picked it up and kept little by little getting better and better and better. And he could see that. He could see the numbers on the paper from his maxes. I could show him film to where he was getting better. He started playing more, and this past year he was a first team all-district offensive lineman, and he's going to Campbellsville. He's going to play ball down there, and he just grew and grew and grew. And I use him as an example all the time. Like, here's a guy that really, when we first got here, he wasn't in my plans. I didn't think he would ever be. You know, I was like, I don't know if this kid's ever going to make it, but he did the work, and I give him the room to do it. Now, he went from being kind of shy and goofy to being overconfident. He's borderline cocky now. But that's, you know, I gave him the room to grow and to do that. So I think when you develop people, you're trying to change how they do things and how they believe in themselves, you got to push them. You really, really got to push them. And then when they get frustrated and they push back, you can't freak out. You can't automatically go to punish them. I told the kids one day I coached offensive line the first couple of years, and I've hired a new offensive line coach, and he's great. I I asked them, I said, y'all ever get in any fights in practice? They're like, oh, no, man. Coach, we got the fight last year, and he'd run us off for 30 minutes. I said, well, I'm going to tell you what. If y'all ain't fighting in practice, I'm going to run you. I said, we got to have some competition. We got to have some guys getting after it. And I kind of gave them the room to grow. As leaders develop, we don't do anything specific we just kind of let leaders develop. And I counsel kids on leadership individually more than anything and in small groups. But we let them lead. We let them handle stuff. There's a kid not working. I don't have to handle that. Somebody has a bad attitude. My players take care of that. They're like, man, listen, this ain't how we do it around here.
And I think one of the lessons, one of the lessons, because I coached a little bit, I haven't done a whole lot, but I did youth, and I have parents coming up to me, what can my son do to make more playing or get more playing time? And I'm like, one of the biggest issues is that you're coming to ask me that and not him.
Right. Yeah.
The other issue is that they have to realize that if I'm getting on them, some people really shriek, but they're like, why are you getting on me? And it's like, you have to understand I'm trying to build you.
Yeah.
If I'm on you, it's because I see it in you.
Right.
And I'm trying to correct it.
Yeah. I tell kids all the time, if I'm not coaching you, then I don't see a whole lot in you.
If I don't see that you have the fire,
man, because I know what I'm trying to get everything I can get out of you.
If I don't see the fire in your eyes and you're wanting to learn, then why do I need to take the attention off of somebody who does want to learn, and to put it on you to try to get you to
bring that effort. They've got to bring it, and if they're bringing it and they'll work and they'll fight, then I can coach.
Absolutely.
Even if you're a horrible athlete, I can do something with that. We can work with that.
Mm-hmm. And that goes in with again. It keeps saying it. That's life.
Yep.
Life ain't easy.
Not just football, it's everything.
Yeah, and if you don't have that fight, and if you sit there and go in the corner too much, just like with the business, that first couple months doesn't. I had a conversation, and I've been trying to get some YouTubers on the channel. Not only to help kind of boost up the numbers a little bit, but for that avenue. And one of them that actually responded to my email, I haven't gotten an interview with him, but is like, you got to have the consistency, because he got ready to give up YouTube 2 months before his channel exploded.
Right.
And it's the same way with anything. As soon as you quit, you're going to end up quitting right before your opportunity explodes.
We went 0-7 during the COVID year. Went 3-7 the next year. And last year we went 8-4, won a playoff game, and Bardstown, they were the number 2 ranked team in the state. They beat us 21-7, and we were in that game to deep in the fourth quarter. So, like you said, right before you've got to have that consistency and that discipline to continue on, even when it seems like, man, this may not pan out. You got to ride it to the bitter end if you have to.
Oh yeah, and that's like the channel's going slow, but it's like I'm still going to churn these out because I enjoy these conversations, and there's going to be one person that kind of hits it and kind of gets value out of these, and then watch the next one and tell somebody else. And I have, even if I create it so that, and you want as a business owner or a coach want to use it to kind of sell yourself or your program, it's there. That's for the help. And I think that actually comes along. Talking about leadership, how do you kind of identify who your leaders are and you nurture them to make sure that they are the right leaders for you? And because there are some people that kind of, you see it in them, but they kind of naturally set back, that you kind of have to coax them of saying, dude, I see it in you and we need you. But each person has their own leadership qualities. How do you kind of take that and kind of mold it into what's best for your team?
Again, the biggest thing, man, is I give these kids room to grow. I give them room to be who they want to be and who they are. I've got some very vocal kids, and we utilize those guys. Those are the guys that lead our stretches, that are, talking all the time. We put them in positions where they're talking. My quarterback is an ultra competitive kid. He started for me as a freshman. He was very mad. We lost to Thomas Nelson by 1 point that first year. He slammed his helmet on the ground, and I climbed in and stuff, and he jumped up in my face, and we were nose to nose. And, the first one part of me is like, this little son of a buck thinks he's big time. And then the other part of me was like, that's my quarterback.
Yep.
So I told him, I said, boy, you better sit down. Named Paul Bryant. Love the kid, man. You talk about a fiery competitor. I said, boy, you better sit down. So he knelt back down. And then after I talked to the team, I stood him back up and I said, all right, Paul, this is our quarterback, boys. He wants to win so bad that he's willing to get nose to nose with me right here in front of everybody. I said, I can live with that. I'm not mad at Paul. I didn't punish him. I was just like, he wanted to win for those seniors, and he was just freshman so bad that he was just frustrated. And I just let those guys grow. Just give them the room. If they're not a vocal person, I will point them out, and our other coaches do a good job of saying, this guy don't say a word to nobody. He just does the work.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little ex-slot receiver named Evan Hicks, and he don't say a whole lot to nobody. And he just goes in and works, and he's a big-time playmaker. And I've got some other guys who are growing into that vocal role as they become better football players and as they become older. So the biggest thing we do is we just kind of let them emerge, and then I talk to them individually. The Carson, and we have another guy named Cam Turner who's going to Kentucky State. And I talk to them individually about leadership and how to do things. And, sometimes they get a little too aggressive with it and say, okay, now these are the times you got to scale back and things like that. So I do a lot of individual counseling with those guys, and then just talking to them about life in general.
Yeah. And that's a big part. Yeah.
Those things, and just kind of let them emerge. And then when they go to handle something, I let them handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I tell them, or I may tell somebody and say, hey, man, we need to do this better. And they're like, Coach, we got it. And I let them have it. And then I'll ask them, maybe I'll say, we get that taken care of. They're like, oh, yeah, we're good. I said, okay. So we go from there. And I think it's important to let the people that you're working with, let them grow and let them handle things and not, I call them pickle counters. Mm-hmm. 3 pickles on the Big Mac, or 2 pickles, not 3 pickles on the Big Mac. I don't count pickles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can't count to 10 unless I take my shoes off anyway. So, but I don't count pickles. We just we let guys emerge and grow, and if I give them something to do, I let them do it. So that's kind of how we nurture that leadership part of our program.
And I think that one of the things that you said kind of in particular is the part that sometimes you end up getting such a hard worker that is so quiet that just the part of you saying and pointing them out, saying we recognize you and everybody else recognize him, because that's what you should be, and how much that can raise a person up to say, wow, I am doing right, and I'm being seen, I guess you could say. And then I kind of think of, we talk about KO. KO is, KO's awesome, but you kind of think about as far as the base of your program, and you and me both can tell that whenever we went, especially on the offensive line, we could go against a team and we could tell whether they had a weight program or not.
Sure.
and that told by the thing. But especially if you're a Kentucky fan, over the last couple of years, whenever it seems like they've had talent, but they always got injured.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to have somebody with the knowledge of KO as a base? Because, like I said, your weight program is so important in a football team, to have somebody that not only stresses the whole part of being able to be strong, but be functionally strong, and to protect so that your best players stay on the field.
When I first started talking about the job, I talked to Kerry, and he talked to me about it. And I was like, well, here's the deal. I said, you're going to do my strength conditioning. If you don't want to do it, then I'm not taking the job. Mm-hmm. And it was that important to me. And I've always said, if I'm a head coach, the first hire I'm going to make is my strength conditioning coach. Well, Kerry, of course, he runs his own business, and he got people that he trains. But he agreed to do our strength conditioning program. And we've got it worked out now where he does the programming for all of our athletic teams. So we have this class, and he does all the programming for this class. and all the summer workouts and everything. And I would say if I had to pin down the one, if they said, all right, what's the one thing, single thing that's been the key catalyst to your success, it's been the weight room. It's been getting in here, and yeah, we run the option and we do some stuff, and we got a lot of there's a lot of really good reasons why we're successful. But if I had to pinpoint one thing, it's because we are simply stronger. The first year we got pushed around. The second year we got much, much better. Last year we rushed for over 3,000 yards. The two biggest wins of the season against LaRue County and Henry County, which one gave us the third seed in the district. The other, we beat Henry County in the playoffs. We rushed for over 400 yards in those games and 0 yards passing. We just lined up and ran the ball down people's throats because we had guys who had been in the weight room for 3 years. They had been doing KO's program. And I'll say this, KO's the best strength and conditioning coach I know. There's nobody else I would get to do my programming for me. I've worked his programs personally for years in my own fitness and weightlifting journey. But he's incredible. Like I said, I can call him, I can text him. Our strength conditioning coach, Coach Elin, she goes and works with him in the summer. So she's ingrained in that dark side, because of dark side performance mentality. And that's probably the single biggest thing, and having him there. And he does, like you talked about, not only are we getting stronger, but we're doing it safely. Kids aren't getting in. We're not doing these crazy things you see on YouTube and all that, where they're balancing on a ball and jumping on 1 foot on boxes and all kinds of. We're doing basic strength and conditioning work, and he's doing it in a fashion that helps kids get stronger without being injured and builds our explosiveness and all these other things. So, like I said, that's probably the single biggest contributing factor, is the fact that we've gotten in the weight room, we really got after it, and we got a good program.
So now you've had your winning season, and just like a business, okay, I'm starting to make some money.
Yeah.
You're getting how do you keep from being complacent and get to that next level? Whether it's just like in a business, what do I do as a football coach? How do you keep that complacency to say, that was a great year, but that's not what we want?
Yeah. You got to maintain high standards of performance and of work ethic, and we fall back on our core values. That's the basis for everything, is that 100% effort. So we fall back on our core values. We can't forget where we came from. We got to understand where we've come from. And as freshmen come into the program, last year's freshmen, they show up and we go 8-4. Hey, this is easy, right? So the older guys have to tell them, this is the standard. This is where we're going. This is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to work. So we've got to keep that ingrained in our psyche there. And we got to just keep working. Just stay on it, keep working. The coaches, we go back. We're going to change up our defense this year because of personnel. We've got some different types of personnel. We've lost some linemen, so we're going to change up our defense a little bit. Offensively, I just got done with an analysis of the triple option. So we're going to look to do some things, not much in our option game differently, but we're going to look to do some things in our secondary run game differently. We're going to work to do some things in our passing game differently. So we've got to go back and always be
self-scouting
and self-analyzing to see, okay, where can we make improvements? We always got to be looking for that edge, because every year, you graduate seniors, you get new guys coming in. Maybe some guys don't come back. Maybe you get some, hopefully we're going to get some basketball athletes that haven't played, which is going to help us be a little more athletic in our secondary. So we just keep working and analyze ourselves and see what we can get better at. And that's the big thing is, there's a guy here named Junior Dugan who's coached around here. He coached back in '96. I talk to him all the time. He's Suns, our girls basketball coach. He says, Coach, you know what you do after a big win? I'm like, what, Coach? He goes, get back to work.
Yep.
He's like, what you do after a big loss? I was like, what's that, Coach? You get back to work. So we're just getting back to work. In the weight room week, we're doing max week this week. Had a kid pull 665 pounds on the trap bar deadlift this morning. He's 205 pounds. He's one of the reasons we're changing our defense because he's going to be a hard guy to deal with. So we just keep keep working, and that's the key. We're going to stay after it. We're a blue collar team. That's kind of how I grew up. Grew up poor, working on the farm.
Yeah.
We're blue collar, and that's just how we're not going to be fancy. We're going to come out there and be physical, and we're going to work hard. And nobody's going to outwork us. You may work as hard as we do, but you ain't going to work harder.
And coming back to you being in Mount Sterling, I'm not far away from there in Flemingsburg. You know, I always keep talking about the biggest importance and why I started my business and stuff of trying. I want to. Yeah, I'd love to have big businesses, all the money and stuff, but I want to support the small businesses, you know, because they're so important to small communities like we're from. And just like I've said before, you know, you look at a Little League game, who's posted on that outfield fence? It's the small communities, the small businesses. And even as a parent, I've tried to teach my kids of, you know, they want to go out and they're like, oh, I don't care who sees me. I don't care or whatever. Yeah, sometimes you have to have the idea of, I don't really have to care about other people's opinion, but you have to understand how they see you as a person theirself and how important that can be. Because just like me and you, a lot of times whenever we walked around, it wasn't like, oh, you're Phillip Stockdale. A lot of times they would say, for me, you're Doug Lee's son.
Yeah.
And there's an expectation that comes along with being Doug Lee's son.
Right.
Because if you mess up, well, Doug Lee messed up raising you, didn't he?
Right. That's it. Yeah.
And that's a part of with the football team. How you have to have that part of kind of, you said, the pride of, you know, Nelson County. What kind of things do you do to kind of teach your team to be cohesive with the community and to let them, I know I'm mumbling a little bit here, but it's one of those things of, also, I think that the community gets to show the team how much they're being supportive and kind of that relationship.
You know, like you said, I always remind our guys that, number one, they are the leaders in our school. And I love all the other sports. I love wrestling. I love basketball. I love all of our other sports. But football, those are the leaders. Those are the guys that are going to lead. I always say this: if you start the school year off with a good football season, you're going to have a good school year. So I tell our guys that a lot of that, what happens in that school building depends on what we do. So you got to remember who you are, whose you are. Like I said, Coach, I say that all the time, and it's direct from Coach Finley's lips. And I tell them that people are watching us. And there's some people out there that want to see you fail.
Oh, yeah.
They really do. They want to see you stumble. But there's way more people, many more people that want to see us succeed. I said, so understand that. And like I said, we talk about Nelson County Cardinal pride, being full of pride, and then full of love for our family, our team, our school, and community. So we preach that, and we talk about it. It's one of our, it's one of the 6 tenets, or 2 of them. And we really don't do, it's just, again, here's another word I use, people use all the time, and I'm not fond of, is organic. But it kind of is. It's just, we got some really good guys. We got guys that work part-time as aides in some of our special education classrooms. We have guys that volunteer. We don't do anything like that as a team, but we got guys going out and doing, they referee Little League ball games. Some of them come up and help coach our youth leagues. They're involved in, we got guys that are involved in all kinds of different clubs and organizations in town. And they just, I tell them, every time you wear that full Nelson sweatshirt or you wear that Nelson County Cardinals gear, everybody knows that you're a football player. They know. So you make sure you act accordingly and represent us well. So we kind of roll with it. I am, like I said, we are incredibly fortunate. I've got a great bunch of kids, man. This school has got a bunch of great kids in it. We've added in our ASL, it started out for athletes only. We've got maybe have 15% of our students that do not play a sport that are in here lifting weights because they want to be part of something, and they may never play a sport. But we've got, I had several guys had a kid come up talk to me the other day. He goes, man, he goes, you've given us our life back. He goes, I've lost 50 pounds and I feel so much better. And, and we're talking about lifting, and some kids who really weren't part of anything now are part of our ASL, and they know the football players, and they know our basketball players, and our soccer players, and our wrestlers. So we kind of, I'm really fortunate to have a great bunch of young people that do all that stuff without me making them. They do all the community stuff. They're active in their churches. They're active in other organizations, and I don't have to make them do it.
And it's funny because, like, whenever you see that, the ones that I coached and stuff, whenever I can look at the paper and see the things that they've done and stuff like that, and I'm just as proud of them as their parents are, just because of that with that relationship and stuff.
Yeah.
So with that,
finished up on that, we had a kid, Cams was signing with Kentucky State, and Atticus. My little one got off the bus, and I was like, let's go in here for Cam's signing ceremony. He's like, what's he signing for? I said, he's going to play college football. He goes, he's not coming back? Oh, it destroyed him. He was tore up because that's his boy. It's been his boy for the last 3 years, So, and it's just, I didn't do nothing but bring Atticus to practice. Those are the kids. They loved him. And he loves them back, and it's just that kind of, and like I said, it just happens. You get in, you work together, you sweat, and you bleed together, and that kind of stuff happens.
Oh,
and it's cool to watch.
And I know that we're getting around the time, but I got to ask this because thinking, hey, we haven't seen each other for a while. How important do you think that it is of, you have kids now starting to sign to go to play football, even if it is an NAIA team or something like that? They're building and you're in a small community that a lot of times kids never had that opportunity to do. How important do you feel that it is that the younger ones now get to see, he went to he's going to play football in college? And then they get to see that it is possible.
It's huge for the young kids to see, to give them those options. And I tell the kids all the time, hey, listen, college may not be for you, but, make sure your grades are right. Make sure your test scores are good so you have that option.
Yeah.
And the younger kids see, okay, I can get to college playing football or doing something else. And then another thing I'm proud of, too, is that some of the guys who didn't go to school that have been around in the community working, I've got 3 or 4 of those guys that want to come back, and they're like, Coach, listen, I'm settled in my job. I want to do something. Can I coach youth football? So I'm going to have a few guys that are former players over the last couple of years that are going to be helping coach some of our youth teams. And hopefully they're guys that can help coach those youth teams for several years. So it's important for them to see, number one, our guys going to college and seeing that is a path they can take. And then also seeing guys come back and give back to the program after they've been gone and out in the real world for a couple of years. That's huge for us to kind of build that and keep that family together.
And it's one of those things that I've tried to tell my kids is that right now you're not interested in some things.
Yeah.
But don't funnel yourself into one.
Right.
And you got to be careful because that door might not be something you want to open, but you sure as heck can close it right now to where it's not available to you later whenever you want to. If you're not careful with how.
Kids all the time, you got to keep your options open. That way, when you get ready to graduate, you can decide. It ain't decided for you. You can decide what you want to do, and you've got some options there. So that's important.
Well, I appreciate your time. I got to say that, we talk about the fraternity and the guys that we played with. I have to say, if you're from Kentucky and you ever seen Rye Hurd's scoreboard, that's what I ever do every Friday night.
Yeah.
Especially, the ones I know, that's the first one that, how'd Brent do? How'd Phillip do?
I do the same thing. I look everywhere to see how everybody's doing, shoot texts out to people, make sure everybody's doing all right. And congratulations on the big win and things like that. So that's important, man.
And dude, I gotta say that when you got the job, it's just like everybody else had the outpouring of you're the perfect job for it or perfect guy for the job. It was one of those things that I couldn't be more happy for you.
Yeah,
You
appreciate it.
talk about the whole time in college and stuff like that. You were always stocky stock to us. KO gave me Staggerly.
Yeah,
The friendships that were built there. I was not. I couldn't be happier for you on that.
hey, I
And
appreciate it, man.
and with the success that you've had and the changes that you have had, I wish you nothing but the best on that.
I appreciate it. Shoot me a shirt size and address, and I'll send you. You said you want some gear. I'll send you some full Nelson gear, and then, man, if you're ever down our neck of the woods during the fall, you got a spot on the sideline for a game, my man.
I appreciate it. I do appreciate
Sure.
all your time.
All right.
Look forward to you and keep up. Okay.
All right. Thanks, partner.
Thank you, sir. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Bye.